When 17-year-old Keon paid for a congresswoman's meal, he didn't expect it to cost him everything. It was 8:30 on a sticky July evening in Dallas, and the heat still clung to the air like plastic wrap. Inside the McDonald's on Buckner Boulevard, fryers hissed, the soda machine wheezed, and 17-year-old Keon Whitlow wiped sweat from his brow with the back of his glove. 3 hours into his shift and barely halfway done, he was starving. He'd clocked in late again. Not out of carelessness, but because his mom's old Dodge had finally died weeks ago. With no car and no money for rideshare, Keon had to walk. In a household where one paycheck had to stretch across 4 people, he wasn't one to complain. Keon just kept his head down, did his work, and tried not to give his manager, Mrs. Tran, more reasons to remind him he was replaceable. That night, though, something out of the ordinary happened. At around 8:45, a black SUV pulled into the lot. Not flashy, no rims, just clean and quiet with government plates. A woman stepped out, one Keon recognized from TV but never imagined he'd see in person, let alone at his McDonald's. Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett. No security detail, no entourage. Just her, in a blue pantsuit and sneakers standing in. Line like everyone else. Keon nudged closer, even though he wasn't on register. The lobby was slow, and curiosity tugged him forward. "That's the Congresswoman," he whispered to a coworker. "From South Dallas. That's her." Crockett smiled politely as she waited her turn. When she finally stepped up, Keon leaned in just as the cashier asked for her order. "Just a McChicken and a small sweet tea," she said with a tired smile. "Long day," Keon chuckled, more nerves than humor. "Ain't nothing like a McChicken to wrap up government business," she laughed. "You say that like you know." He shrugged, scratching his cheek, suddenly self-conscious. "We watch your clips sometimes. My grandma calls you the firecracker lady in the blue suit." That made her laugh for real. "Tell your grandma I appreciate the nickname. She was cool, down to earth, didn't carry herself like someone important." So Keon, acting on a tired kind of instinct, nodded to the cashier. "It's on me." Crockett raised an eyebrow. "You sure?" "Yeah," he said, already pulling a few crumpled bills from his apron. "Just a thank you. It's like $4. She held his gaze for a moment, then smiled. "That's kind of you." "It's nothing." But it wasn't nothing. The rest of his shift passed quietly. He mopped the floor, restocked napkins, clocked out. Just as he was tying his hoodie around his waist, Mrs. Tran called him into the back office. "You gave away food," her tone wasn't. "Angry, just cold, corporate cold. I paid for it," Keon said. "It was just a McChicken and tea. You paid for it after ringing it up under her name." Keon blinked. "No, She ordered I said I'd cover it, and gave the money." She tapped on her tablet. "Doesn't matter. That's theft. No free food. Not for family, not for friends, not for politicians." "I didn't know it was a problem if I paid." "It's not about the money," she said. "It's about process and appearances." Keon stood silent. He knew arguing wouldn't change anything. He'd already been warned about being late. The week before. Maybe this was just the final straw. "You're done here," Mrs. Tran said. "Effective immediately. No write-up. No second chance. Just gone." He walked out the back door, hands stuffed in his hoodie pockets. The parking lot hummed with heat and drive-through chatter. He thought about calling his mom but didn't want to hear the worry in her voice. He'd just walk home. Figure things out tomorrow. What hurt most wasn't losing the job. It was losing it because of kindness, because of one small decision that, for a second, felt like the right thing to do. Keon had no idea someone was watching, or that his story was already unfolding online. What Keon didn't know as he walked home that night, hoodie tied around his waist and head full of questions, was that someone had seen what happened and captured it. By morning, Keon's name wasn't trending, but the story was crawling through Dallas Twitter. A blurry cell phone photo, snapped quietly from across the McDonald's dining room, showed Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett at the counter. Just behind her, Keon stood with his head slightly bowed. The caption read, "Kid gave her a free meal and got fired. What kind of nonsense is that?" It started as a few retweets, a handful of outraged replies. But Dallas talks, especially when something feels unjust. Back home, Keon sat silently on the couch, scrolling through his phone. His little brother mashed buttons on the Xbox beside him. From the next room, his mother shuffled papers, trying to make the rent work again. He hadn't told her yet, not because he was hiding anything. He just didn't know how to explain losing a job for doing something that felt right. Then his phone buzzed, a message from a girl at school he barely knew. "Yo, is this about you?" She'd sent the tweet. His stomach flipped. He tapped the link. The photo didn't show his face clearly, but in the comments, people were already guessing. Someone swore he was from Hillcrest High. Another wrote, "Manager trippin'. He paid for it." He locked his screen. Back at the restaurant, tension simmered. Mrs. Tran had already taken several calls, angry voices demanding answers. One man shouted through the drive-through speaker, "Tell your boss, she just made a mistake." But Mrs. Tran wasn't budging. She gathered her 2 shift leads in the back office. "I followed protocol," she insisted. "He's a good kid," one lead said softly. "Good doesn't cover losses," Tran replied. "If we bend for one customer, even one, it sends the wrong message." The second shift lead, Vince, who'd been there 4 years, looked her in the eye. "Even if that one customer's Congresswoman Crockett," Tran hesitated. "It doesn't matter who she is." But it did. Later that day, halfway through a committee break in Austin, a staffer texted Jasmine Crockett the photo. She stared at it for a long second. "Wait," she said aloud. "They fired that boy? Looks like it," the staffer replied. Crockett didn't respond right away. She just scrolled through the thread, comments defending Keon, others arguing corporate policy, and a few trolls muddying the water. One tweet stood out. "That's the problem. Rules over people. Hope she says something." That evening, Crockett returned to Dallas earlier than scheduled. She didn't go home, didn't call ahead. Instead, she pulled into the same McDonald's drive-thru, placed a small order she didn't want and parked. She stood outside the glass doors for a moment, watching. Inside, staff started to notice. "She's back," someone whispered. "Yo, that's her." When Crockett stepped inside, the room went still. Customers froze. Phones came out. A manager peeked from the kitchen, eyes wide. Mrs. Tran emerged a moment later, adjusting her blouse as she approached. "Congresswoman Crockett, it's, nice to see you again." Crockett nodded politely. "I wish I could say the same. Do you mind if we talk somewhere private?" They stepped into a side hallway. Still customers recorded from across the room, reading lips, sensing tension. Crockett kept her voice low, but her tone was clear. "I didn't ask for that meal," she said. "That young man gave it to me out of respect, and you fired him." "It wasn't personal," Tran replied. "It's about store policy." "And what's your policy on basic decency?" Crockett asked. "That's not fair." "No," Crockett said. "What happened to that kid wasn't fair." From outside you could feel the weight in the air. No yelling, no theatrics. Just two women, 10 feet apart, holding an invisible line drawn tight between them. "I'd like his contact information," Crockett said. "If you won't give it, I'll find another way." Tran didn't answer right. "Away. I'm not looking to tweet about this," Crockett added. "I don't want a circus. I just want to talk to him." After a beat, Mrs. Tran muttered something under her breath and walked away. Crockett stayed still for a moment, then quietly left. No scene, no sound bites. She wasn't there for attention, and yet attention had already found her. A teenager in the corner booth had filmed the entire encounter, and by the time she reached her car, the clip was already making its way across Instagram. But Crockett wasn't interested in going viral. She had something else in mind, and it started with finding Keon. That night, Keon didn't check social media. He lay on his bed, phone face down on the floor, headphones in but no music playing. His mom had found out. She always did. He expected anger, disappointment. But all she said was, "We'll figure it out." She turned off the kitchen light and left him in silence. By morning, the house smelled like toast and instant coffee. Keon barely touched his plate. Then came the knock. 3 times, firm, not frantic, just official. He glanced through the peephole and took a half step back. "Ma," he called, "you might want to come see this." Standing outside in jeans and a t-shirt was Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett. His mom opened the door, eyes full of questions. Crockett spoke first. "I'm here to see Keon, if that's all right." He stepped forward, stunned. Yeah, that's me." "You mind if we talk?" They sat on the edge of the porch, 2 feet apart. His mom stood just inside the screen door, arms folded, watching. Keon broke the silence. "I didn't think you'd even remember me." Crockett smiled. "You think I forget the people who show me respect. You took $4 out of your own pocket, for me. You didn't owe me that." "I didn't do it for attention," he said quickly. "I know," she replied. "That's why I'm here." She reached into her purse and unfolded a sheet of paper. "This is a referral," she said. "A good friend of mine runs a youth employment program over on Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard. They help kids finish school, get steady jobs, build resumes, real tools, real chances." Keon stared at the paper but didn't take it. "There's a spot open. You don't have to say yes, but it's there, for you." His throat tightened. "Why are you doing this?" Crockett looked him in the eye. "Because kindness matters, and because too often the people who do the smallest good are the ones who get hit the hardest. I can't undo what that manager did, but I can help but make sure it doesn't define what comes next." He took the paper, eyes down. "I don't even know what to say." "You don't have to say anything," she said gently. "Just don't let this be where your story ends." His mom came out, eyes wet, and hugged him hard. Crockett walked to her car. Across the street, a neighbor started clapping. Slow, loud, deliberate. Others joined in. Within seconds, the block echoed with applause. Keon stood on the porch, blinking, half laughing, still stunned. But the city hadn't moved on. That same afternoon, a news van pulled into the McDonald's parking lot. They hadn't planned to cover the story until the video of Crockett's visit passed 300,000 views overnight. Producers rushed it to air. Mrs. Tran kept her composure during the interview. She repeated the policy, said it wasn't personal, said emotion couldn't override corporate guidelines. But her voice didn't land the way she hoped. Where she meant structure, the public heard stubbornness. At home, Keon watched the segment. His face was blurred, but everyone knew it was him. His stomach twisted. "I didn't ask for all this," he muttered. "No," his mom said. "But sometimes the good you do puts you in a light, and people either celebrate you or try to burn you for it." He looked down at the paper Crockett had given him, ran his thumb over the corner. "I think I'm going to go tomorrow." "Then you go," she said. But while Keon was finally stepping forward, the storm outside the restaurant only grew louder. By the next morning, the local story had gone national. Clips of Crockett, measured, composed, standing in the McDonald's lobby, ran on morning shows from Phoenix to Philadelphia. On Good Day, Texas, a panel debated policy versus principle. One anchor called it an example of grace. Another said flatly, "Let's be real, it's $4. This shouldn't even be news." They got punished for doing the right thing, for stepping out of line, for showing kindness in a system that didn't know how to process it. McDonald's corporate stayed quiet. At first. Meanwhile, Crockett released a short video. No music, no edits. Just her, sitting on her back porch. "I didn't ask for a free meal, but I received one from someone who meant it as a simple act of respect. That young man paid for it himself, and he was fired. Not warned, not suspended, fired. This isn't about policy, it's about culture, about what kind of world we're choosing to build. Do we want a society where rules matter more than decency?" The video exploded online. Comment sections flooded with people sharing their own stories. Baristas reprimanded for giving a coffee to someone cold and homeless. Clerks written up for covering a few cents at the register. Warehouse workers fired for staying 2 extra minutes to help a new hire find his footing. Even McDonald's employees began posting anonymously. Screenshots of erratic schedules, harsh write-ups for minor slip-ups. Some called for a boycott. Others lit up the corporate hotline with voicemails. Back in Dallas, Keon walked into the employment center Crockett had mentioned. The building was worn but clean, tucked between a discount grocer and a community health clinic. Inside, he met Mr. Talbot, the program director, middle-aged, calm, called everyone young man or miss. Talbot shook Keon's hand. "So you're the kid who stirred all this up?" Keon started to shrink, but Talbot clapped him on the shoulder. "Good," he said. "Means you stood for something." They got him signed up for resume workshops, job training, even GED prep, just in case he wanted to finish early and move on to something bigger. That night, Keon sat on the steps of the center, watching the Dallas skyline in the distance. The air still stuck to his skin. His life was still hard. But now, it didn't feel small. He pulled out his phone, scrolled through the latest thread. There it was. His full name. Someone had found it. "Keon Whitlow deserves better. McDonald's. Do something right." He dropped the phone into his lap, exhaled. "What do I even do now?" he muttered. A voice answered from nearby. "Make the next move count. Crockett, again." Leaning against her car. "You always pop up like this?" he asked, smirking. "Only when someone's standing at a crossroads. I'm not sure what I'm doing." "You don't need to be sure," she said. "You just need to stay honest." He looked at her. "You really believe this all happened for a reason?" She paused. "I believe what you did mattered," she said, "and sometimes that's reason enough." But not everyone saw it that way. In the boardrooms of McDonald's headquarters, executives were preparing a calculated response. Meanwhile, Keon kept showing up. Every day that week, he walked through the center's double glass doors. He wasn't used to structure that didn't feel like punishment. No bells, no uniforms, no one breathing down his neck, just people asking what he wanted from life, then quietly helping him move toward it. On Thursday, he sat across from Miss Regina, a career coach with big glasses and an even bigger laugh. She tapped her pen on his intake form. "So," she said, "you put down that you like working with people. Still true?" Keon shrugged. "I guess. I like being part of a team. When it's not toxic." Regina nodded like she'd heard that 100 times. "You ever think about customer relations? Office support? I never thought I'd get a job that wasn't behind a counter." "Well, honey," Regina said, smiling gently, "you're not behind a counter anymore." Keon blinked. She wasn't trying to flatter him. She meant it, and for the first time in weeks his posture straightened, without him even thinking about it. Meanwhile, Crockett was moving behind the scenes. She'd reached out to a friend, Marvin Quall, Director of Community Affairs at a regional tech firm in Irving. Quall's wasn't Google, but it was respected. Solid pay, strong mentorship, a company known for giving second chances to young people who'd had rough starts. When Crockett sent over Keon's resume, a short one-page doc Regina had helped him write, Marvin didn't hesitate. "Bring him in," he said. "Let's meet the kid." Keon didn't even own a button-up shirt. Regina loaned him one from her son's closet, still starched, sleeves a bit long. He kept tugging them up, just enough to look like he meant business. He met Marvin that Friday. The office was bright. Glass, walls, soft carpet, that distinct smell of lemon wipes and printer ink. Keon's palms were so sweaty he kept them buried in his pockets while he waited. Then Marvin walked in, coffee in one hand, wide smile on his face. "Keon, right?" "Yes, sir." "Nervous?" Keon nodded. "Good," Marvin said. "Means you care." They barely talked about McDonald's. Instead, Marvin asked, "What kind of work doesn't feel like punishment?" "When are you most focused during the day?" "What's something you've done that made you proud?" Nobody had ever asked Keon questions like that before. At the end, Marvin said, "We've got a 12-week training track. Part-time at first. Admin support. Phones, schedules, sorting chaos. Think you'd be good at that?" Keon took a breath. "I think I could learn." "That's the right answer." He got the spot. When he walked out of the building, he felt 10 feet taller. He called his mom before he even hit the parking lot. "They hired me," he said. "No kidding?" "No kidding. Start Monday." She paused, then said, "God's watching, baby. You stay humble." And he did. He showed up early, asked questions, took notes, stayed late when needed. He wasn't a polished intern with shiny shoes and buzzwords, but he learned fast, and people noticed. One afternoon, Marvin stopped by his cubicle with a smoothie in hand. "You're good at this, Keon. Like really good. You've got instincts." Keon smiled but kept typing. "Don't let where you started make you think that's where you belong," Marvin added. "You're building your lane now." That night, Keon walked home with a quiet pride in his chest. Not loud, just steady, the kind that sticks. As he turned the corner onto his block, a neighbor waved him down. "You see the news?" "No, why?" "McDonald's just released a statement. Something about re-evaluating internal policy." Keon paused. "They changed the rules?" "Looks like it. Your name's not in it, but it's clear who they're talking about." But before the headlines faded, before attention moved on, something else happened. Something that made Keon realize this wasn't just about him anymore. The press release from McDonald's HQ came late on a Tuesday. No names, no admissions, just carefully worded corporate speak, dressed up as sincerity. We are currently reviewing our employee conduct policies to ensure they align with the values of respect, community, and fairness. It hit inboxes and newsrooms nationwide, but everyone already knew the story behind it. Keon didn't care much for corporate statements. He read it once, then turned back to his work schedule. But the people around him? They cared. That week, the Dallas Morning News ran a story about his journey. They didn't use his full name, but they interviewed Crockett, Marvin, and Regina. It wasn't dramatic or overblown. It was honest. In the piece, Crockett said, "Kindness doesn't always make headlines, but when it does, it shouldn't cost someone their future." And then, something unexpected happened. Midweek, an older man walked into the employment center. Gray beard, loose-fitting suit, hat tucked under one arm. He asked to speak to Keon. Regina called him over. "You've got a visitor," she said. Keon stepped into the small meeting room, unsure of what to expect. The man stood and extended a hand. "Arthur Lansing," he said. "Used to run a regional franchise office for McDonald's. Long time ago. Retired now." Keon raised an eyebrow. "What can I do for you?" Arthur chuckled softly. "No, young man. It's what I came to say to you." He sat down, folding his hands over his knee. "I saw what happened. I spent over 30 years with that company. Built my career there. And let me tell you, what you did, that wasn't a fireable offense. That was decency. Old school decency." Keon said nothing. Arthur leaned in, voice lower, more sincere. "That company taught me a lot, gave me a future. But it also taught me how easy it is to follow the rules so closely. You forget the people behind them." Keon nodded slowly. "I wasn't trying to break anything," he said. "I just wanted to show respect." "And you did," Arthur replied. "And it mattered." He slid a small envelope across the table. "There's a $500 check in there. Not charity. Just appreciation from me." Keon hesitated. Don't argue with an old man," Arthur said gently. "Just cash it, and keep building." That night, Keon sat on the steps outside the employment center again, staring into the stillness. Life still wasn't easy, but it was changing, and not just for him. Stories began surfacing, quietly at first. Employees from other cities sharing moments of kindness that had once gotten them written up or fired. Some were being rehired. Others received quiet apologies. One tweet read, "Gave a coffee to a guy who couldn't pay last year. Got written up. Just got a call. Policy changed." Another said, "Used to be scared of doing anything off script, but Keon showed me. It's okay to have a heart." It wasn't a movement, it wasn't a trend, but it was enough. Back at the tech office, Marvin called Keon into his office. "Sit down," he said. "Got something for you." Keon sat, nerves creeping in, just like his first day. "We're extending your role," Marvin said. "You're full-time now. Benefits included." Keon blinked. "For real?" "You earned it." He walked home that evening with paperwork in one hand, and his mom already waiting at the door. She opened it before he could knock. "I'm full-time now." He grinned. She hugged him, tighter than ever before. "Maybe next," she whispered. "You'll be the one writing policy." He laughed. "Let's not get ahead of ourselves." But something had shifted. He'd lost a job over a sandwich and $4, but gained something no paycheck could offer, a sense of worth that didn't depend on someone else's rulebook. Before the world moved on, Crockett had one more thing to say, and she wanted Keon to hear it in person. It was a warm Saturday afternoon when Jasmine Crockett pulled up outside the community center. She'd called ahead, asked Regina if Keon would be around. He wasn't scheduled, but word spread quickly. Within the hour, he was standing outside trying to look casual and failing miserably. Crockett stepped out of the car, jeans, sneakers, and a shirt that read, "Do good anyway." "Busy man these days," she said. "I try," Keon replied, hands stuffed in his pockets. "Didn't think you'd still be checking on me." "I said I would," she said. "Besides, I've got something to show you." They walked past the main building toward the back lot. Rows of folding chairs, maybe 50, were all filled. Neighbors, youth workers, local reporters, even staff from the employment center sat facing a makeshift podium. Keon stopped. "Wait, what is this?" Crockett smiled. "A community town hall. We hold them once a month. Today's about work, about dignity, about where those two things intersect." Keon looked uncertain. "Don't worry," she added. "You're not speaking. You're just watching." They took seats in the front row. As Crockett stepped to the mic, applause rippled through the crowd. She spoke with that same calm fire Keon first saw on TV. Not loud, but impossible to ignore. "Too often," she began, "we teach our young people to follow the rules, no matter what. And while discipline matters, context matters more. When kindness becomes a punishable offense, something is broken, and we must ask ourselves, are we raising workers, or are we raising citizens?" More applause, murmurs of agreement. This month, one small act reminded us, doing the right thing isn't always popular. It might even cost you. But that doesn't mean it's not worth doing. She turned slightly. Her gaze landed on Keon, just for a moment. "That's why we're launching a new local initiative, People Over Policy, a mentorship and advocacy program that uplifts young workers, teaches them their rights, and helps prevent stories like Keon's from happening again." Gasps, applause, cameras flashing. Keon blinked, stunned. "I didn't know," he whispered. "We've been building it for weeks," Crockett said. "Told you this was never about just one kid. It's about a system. You just happened to light the match." After the town hall, a line of people formed, waiting to shake Keon's hand. A woman said her son was fired from a retail job last year for letting a hungry kid slide on a candy bar. A man in construction boots said, "You gave a lot of us something to point to when our bosses say, 'That's just how it is.'" Keon didn't know what to say, so he just kept repeating, "Thank you." Later that evening, as the crowd dispersed, Crockett walked him back to the curb. "You proud of yourself?" she asked. He hesitated. "I think I'm still catching up." She smiled. "That's fair. Just don't fall behind." "Thank you," he said quietly. "For everything." "Don't thank me," she replied. "You made the choice. You did the right thing. When nobody was looking, that's where it starts." Keon watched her drive off. The folding chairs were being packed away. The sun dipped lower in the sky. He looked up, exhaled, and walked back toward the center. The path ahead wasn't clear. He still had to hustle, still had bills, still had goals, still had a long way to go, for himself, for Tao. But something in him had shifted, quietly, unshakably. He understood now. Doing the right thing might not bring comfort, but it brings clarity, And that was something he could build a life on. Because sometimes, one quiet choice in a fast food lobby can echo louder than you ever imagined. If this story moved you, take a moment. Think about the rules we follow and the people they affect. Like, share, subscribe. If you believe kindness should never be a liability,